Hey friends, so I haven't made a video in a while, so I want to catch you up on some stuff that I've been working on, but this stuff about mixing that I'm going to talk about at the end is probably the most interesting. So if you want to skip ahead to that, I'll try to put in some chapter markers. So for the past 2.5 months or so, I've been working on a new project. So at the beginning of July, I decided that I wanted to make something for AV companies. And so I started talking to a lot of project managers and operations managers, trying to find somewhere where I could be helpful. So by the way, if you work at an AV company, I would love to talk to you. So please email me, nathan@sounddesignlive.com, and we'll set up a time to chat. So that's mostly what I've been doing. I did create a few demos and I worked on a couple of shows, but I've mostly just been having conversations with people, trying to understand where the demand is for a new product. And it feels like it's going really slow. To be honest with you, I really hoped and thought that by the end of September, I could have a small working product and have a few customers. And right now I have 0 customers. So I have pitched a couple of products to a few people. And so far, no one has said, yes, we love this. Please take my money. And that is what I'm really going for this time around. I feel like with Subaligner, I was always doing so much pushing and marketing and creating lots of videos. And that was all kind of fun. But I would really like to find a product where there's more of, people pulling it out of me, where they're really excited about it and they're like asking for new features. And so I'm trying to do a better job this time around on just doing a lot of research and interviews so that I have a better understanding of what people really need before I go into it. Another thing that I think is making it take longer is that I'm not the domain expert with this new product. And domain expert, maybe it sounds kind of arrogant. That's just a term used in software development a lot to refer to the person who understands what the product should do, what the business logic is. Oftentimes you have the software developers, and then they need to talk to the domain expert to understand how this thing should work. So when I built Subaligner, I built it all by myself. Obviously, I did talk to a lot of people, and I did a lot of research, and I had a lot of beta users and things like that. But I have strong opinions about how sound system design and calibration should be done and how subwoofer alignment should be done. And so I packaged those all together into that product. With this new project, I don't have super strong opinions. Well, I have a few, but I don't have a lot of strong opinions about how the business of audiovisual companies should be run, right? And what's holding them back and what problems they have and where the demand is for that stuff. So I can't really build it by myself, and it's forcing me to talk to more people. And that's probably good. One of the hardest things has just been finding people to talk to. The people who will end up using this software are also often really busy. And they often also haven't been exposed to any of my content or videos or anything. And so it's just been a little bit harder to find people to talk to. So again, if you work at an AV company, I'd love to talk to you. I am going to show you one of the things that I built. I started going down this path because it did seem like there was some demand for time tracking software for AV companies to use with their employees and contractors and stuff. Why? Right? Because there are so many. If you have never looked, there's lots and lots of solutions out there for time tracking software already, and some of them are really what's the right word? Comprehensive. There are some that will automatically track everything that you're doing on your computer, but that's not a perfect solution for AV companies, because a lot of what project managers and operations managers do is respond to phone calls and texts on their phone from people that need help. And that a lot of times that time needs to get logged against a project, because a company has a service contract with a customer and they're trying to keep track of how many hours are logged against that project. blah, blah, blah. So there's not a perfect solution out there, I think, for AV companies yet. At least not one that integrates with all the software used at AV companies. Things like Flex, Rentman, D-Tools, Q360, things like that. So I started looking at that and I started building out a demo. And what I thought would be fun is a chat interface. I think more and more people are becoming comfortable with things like ChatGPT. And I thought, hey, would it be easier just to have a chat interface where I can just say, hey, clock into this project, do this, do that, instead of making people learn new software. So here is the demo. And you see there's nothing on the screen, right? So normally you would have a drop down where you like select the project and you click a button to clock in. But here instead, I'm just going to say, hey, let's create a project. Let's create a project called, what should we call it? Let's call it, July people. I don't know. I'm just making up random words here. Okay. So it's created the project for me. So I didn't need to learn how to really use this. I just need to type in the stuff that I want it to do. Now let's clock in, and then hopefully it'll know that I want to clock into that project. I'm clocked in. Okay, great. And then we can clock out. Over here, then we would be able to see how much time we've logged against July people. And then we could set a estimated number of hours, and then we could see like total hours consumed. And this would be like, a project manager's view of the project. And then they can see like, okay, are we on track? Are we still within budget? What are our margins for labor? And maybe then we could also do some fun charts, and you could estimate that over time. Also, none of this is new as well. But maybe combining the two is new. I haven't quite seen any time tracking software out there yet that has this kind of natural language processing. Even if there is, it doesn't seem like necessarily this will be a product yet. I haven't had any customers for it, but it was fun just to try out. I wanted to see, can I use natural language processing to call these functions and get things done? Now, one of the first objections is, doesn't this take longer, right? You could have just clicked a button that said clock in, but now I'm making you type out words. And that may be true, but you don't have to learn how to use it. You don't have to learn where that button is to clock in. And so as the software grows, and the problem is that a lot of these softwares, I'm going to pick on Flex because I'm a little bit familiar with it. A lot of AV companies use Flex. It's fairly complex, and I've noticed that a lot of people just don't know how to do stuff. I definitely don't. I'm not a Flex expert, but as I'm asking people like, hey, what are your problems in your business? Like, oh, Flex is so complex, and we have, this huge inventory and all these projects. Well, wouldn't it be nice if sometimes you could just type in the thing that you want to do instead of having to look in the user's guide to figure out what you need to do, right? Like, go here, open this menu. That's the idea. And the other thing is that we have dictation on all of our devices now. A lot of times it's faster to, for example, dictate a telephone number than it is to type it out when you have to type out a telephone number or something like that. And so if I have dictation here, then I might say, hey, clock into this thing, clock out of this thing, do this, do that. And that could all be faster and a little bit more intuitive maybe than finding those same buttons on a dashboard or an interface or something. Okay, that's the demo for that. Okay, so here's the story. What do you do when Yamaha Support is closed? I love Yamaha Professional Support. They've helped me out so much over the years. They are not open on Sundays unless you, I think, are a Rivage user, and that you probably have to, maybe you have to pay some subscription for that. I don't know. But it happens to me pretty often that I'm setting up shows on a Sunday, and that's when I might need help. And so that is exactly what happened a couple of weeks ago. So let me go back. Oh, do I need to close this? Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I made this post about a show that I worked on. I had some struggles getting a Rio talking to a DM7. This is my first time using a DM7, so I was kind of worried that it was just because I don't know how to use a DM7. At the end of the day, it all worked, and I'm not really sure why, but I struggled with it for about an hour. I tried calling Yamaha, and I posted about it later, and my friend Scott shared this, and he said, hey, have you seen this thing? I found it to be helpful, and I was like, oh, I've never seen this exact thing, which basically says, if you make a change and you're having problems, then you might need to power cycle everything, including the switches. And I was like, including the switches? No one ever said that to me, but maybe they did. You know, I've been working on shows for over 20 years. I've done a bunch of trainings. Maybe I even have this written down somewhere. I just don't know where it is, but I have a pretty bad memory. And so maybe at some point someone told me, hey, you need to power cycle the switches if nothing's working. Anyway, on that show, I did not do that. And that may have solved all of my problems. But now I know. And so the show that I worked on directly after that, I had the same problem, power cycled the switches, everything was fine. And so now I have a little bit more disciplined setup where I power on the switches. That's the last thing that I do. So I make sure to get all of the ports set up correctly, get everything connected on the primary switch, power that on. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Dante networking and system design and setup so much today as to talk about how to get answers to these questions. So I think, you know, most of us might check the manual, call a friend, Google for an answer, or call support. And those are all great solutions. But I had another idea. Again, going back to this idea of utilizing ChatGPT, utilizing some modern tools, you guys have probably seen that you can go to ChatGPT, you can upload a document, and then you can ask questions about it. And so, what if I could have loaded this document into ChatGPT or maybe some user's manuals and asked some questions about it? And so I thought, hey, I'll build this into my little assistant here so that on my next show, if I have questions, I can try that out. And that is exactly what happened, of course, because something always comes up. So I was trying to get a ducker set up on a QL1. If you've used a QL1, you know that you have these dynamics areas here, and in Dynamics 1, you can choose a ducker, and then you can choose a key in. So in this scenario, I had a music channel, and I wanted to duck it based on a VOG channel. And so that's what I did. But it wasn't working. I kept testing it and testing it and testing it. It's so simple, right? Like all these settings, there's no mystery here, and it should have been working. I couldn't figure out why it was working. And I said, hey, let me take a look at the manual real quick, because I still didn't know if my assistant thing actually would give me the answer. And so here in the manual, I just looked up the word ducker, and I searched around for that, and I was moving really quick. I couldn't find the answer. It's like, okay, let me try my assistant. So let's test it out right now. Here's the question. If I put that into the assistant, is it going to give me any helpful information? Now, before I put this question in, let me tell you that this is all the stuff I uploaded to it. So I gave it the QL1 user's manual, a TO, the DM7. Basically, I tried to find reference documentation for every piece of equipment that I had in the system. So if I had any question, maybe it can look it up for me. So here, I'm going to put this question in, and it's going to try and find an answer. And let's see if it can help me. Here's a few things to check. Key input settings. Okay. Make sure that the key input from channel 9 is correctly routed to the ducker. So I did that. Input 9. Great. It might be set to self instead of external. It's not. Double check the ducker settings to ensure that it's indeed set to respond to key input from channel 9, not just channel 13 and 14. Oh, so now I'm starting to, okay, it's giving me this channel linking. Verify that linking between channels 13 and 14 is properly configured to ensure both channels react to ducker settings. Okay, this ended up being the answer, because I was looking at this channel on a custom fader layer. And on the custom fader layer, I had removed all of the channel links. So I just had one channel for VOG, one channel for playback, and one channel for this music channel. I had completely forgotten that there was another channel linked to it. I mean, I hadn't forgotten, but honestly, I thought that the dynamic settings were all linked as well. And I think I only use a ducker maybe once a year. So I didn't even think to check that the other channel, I would also need to set the key in settings here. So it did end up being really helpful because it just got me to basically check all of the settings that I hadn't thought of, including the link channel. And so once I went to look at that linked channel, and then I saw that the key in source was not set correctly, it was still set to self. That's why it was confused. And then I set that to channel 9 as well. And then it started working. So it feels like a big win for this kind of a product. And again, it might still be faster just to like call support, call a friend, look up the user's manual. But sometimes it's really helpful to have somebody to talk to in the middle of the night when you can't get a hold of anybody else. I mean, there have been some times in my career where I've been really nervous. I can't find anybody else to talk to or help me. And sometimes I'll just call my wife. And even though she might not know anything about some of these technical problems, it's still really helpful to just talk to somebody, get the thoughts out in the open and try to think through things, and then ideas come up, and they usually do. So even if this tool here couldn't find the answer, I've still found that sometimes it's helpful to have somebody to talk to, right? Anyway, I don't think this is novel, right? Like you can already do this with other tools like ChatGPT. But what I'm thinking is that it might be helpful to just build this kind of functionality into other tools. For example, time tracking. So one of the challenges at companies is getting people to accurately report their hours, send, end of day reports, and project managers are always trying to get better project visibility. So one of my ideas is if I can make a tool that is helpful for other things, not just time tracking, then maybe everybody would be more motivated to use it. So imagine if this is a thing that can answer technical problems for you, as well as, do other things, basically be your personal assistant. If you're already using it and you see value in it during the day, then it's not that big of a deal for you to just open it up and log your hours because you already have it open anyway and you already know how to use it. So that was kind of the idea with this. It did end up being helpful for me, and that's all I can really do with it right now. Until I have customers, I'll just keep building things to, solve my own problems. And so I think I'll keep using this. And, as I work on more shows, I'll just keep putting more reference documentation into this thing for myself so that, when I run into problems in the field, a lot of times on shows, I'm the only audio person and everybody else is really busy anyway. And so it's nice to have my own assistant that I can talk to, anytime I want and see if they can come up with any solutions for me. Okay, so that was the story of me trying to get answers to things when Yamaha Support is closed. I'm curious if any of you have ever tried this. When you're trying to get technical support, do you ever just load stuff? Do you ever try ChatGPT or Gemini or one of these other chat interfaces for an LLM? Do you ever load in your maybe company information or reference documentation? Has that ever worked for you? I'm curious if people have found any success in that area. Okay, thanks for listening to this video. Thanks for listening to my story, and hope to see you again soon.